So like I said, we're going to be starting a painting assignment, and in order to prepare for us to move on to the summative for this project, the big project, the one that's a little bit more detailed, more challenging, more fun, we do have to practice how to use the paint properly, how to mix and how to make colors. So that's what I'm going to be walking you through today. You are going to get a handout that looks like this. It is a color wheel. This should be a familiar concept to you. It's something that should be addressed in elementary school, but it doesn't hurt to refresh our memories because we run into it a lot, and it's something that even a lot of grown people I ask don't always know the right color. So when you get this paper, the first thing that I want you to do is put your name on it and your class, which would be our block, and that is going to be third block. So that, because when we work on this handout, everybody's are going to basically look the same, and you want to be able to keep up with yours, so it's really super important that you put your name on it. All right, so to do this, we're going to need paint. We're only going to have red, yellow, and blue paint because we're practicing mixing colors correctly. We're using tempera paint, so you'll get red, yellow, and blue today. You're also going to need to choose a paintbrush. Now, we have a Goldilocks situation here on the paintbrushes. When you choose a brush, that's going to help you decide from the get-go how your craftsmanship is going to look. And we talk about craftsmanship for every single project, so this is not anything new, but we're thinking about the size and shape of these areas that we're going to be painting, and we want to pick a brush that's going to help us do that without being too messy. So using a really big brush like this would be really difficult to try to paint inside of this shape without going outside of the lines, because the shapes have a small point on them. Some of these other shapes are much smaller in between, and we don't want to have something that's going to make it difficult for us to stay inside those lines. One of the things that you'll be graded on for this is your brush control. How well were you able to stay inside those lines? So choosing the right brush is going to help you stay inside those better. This is a terrible choice, way too big. This is not a great choice because it's way too small. So this is where we don't want to choose this, because it would take forever for us to fill in this entire shape using this brush because it's really small. These maybe wouldn't be so bad, and if you feel the need to switch up in the middle, you know, when you're mixing your colors and you do think I really need a bigger brush because I just can't control, a smaller brush because I can't control the one I'm using, that's not a problem at all. You can get another brush and use that, but for most of this is way too small. It would take a really long time, and we get really streaky brush strokes. This is going to be, for the most part for this assignment, just right. So kind of in the middle. It's not as big as this one, and it's not as small as this one. And we're going to be able to hopefully fill in these shapes in a way that's like not wasting time, but in a way that they're going to be neat. We'll be able to kind of go along the edges and fill it in without making too many mistakes. So the only other two things you're going to need are a container of water. So you'll find these over on the sink. There's several different types of containers. It does not matter what kind of container you use. You just need to get one. Do not fill it all the way to the top. You only need to fill it up about halfway or 3/4 of the way. There's no reason to fill it all the way up and spill it. Then you need a paper towel. Just grab one. We don't want to waste the paper towels. So we're going to start by painting only our primary colors. Who can tell me which ones are the primaries? Jada? Red's one. What's another? Yellow? Blue. Good. Okay. I'm glad you guys know your primaries, because I'm not joking you. Like, I've asked my husband, who's a grown person, what are the primary colors? And he's like, red, blue, and orange. I'm like, you're an idiot. So we start with the primaries first. So I'm going to get my brush just a little bit wet so that so that the bristles kind of clump together. We don't want them to be too spread apart because it makes a bad texture. So I'm going to start with blue first. I'm going to get just a little on my brush. You don't want too much. And we're just going to fill in these larger ones with the primary colors. The triangle shapes on here, we want to fill in with the primary colors, and we want to do it as neatly as we can. So notice I'm slowing down as I get towards these edges, and I'm trying to stay inside that line and fill the shape completely. I'm going to need a little more paint. My brush is starting to get too dry. So just as much as knowing which colors you're mixing and which colors go where is just as important, if not maybe even a little bit more important, to be painting neatly. So I'm going to turn my paper so I can get a better angle over here. Notice I'm just slowly at an angle going along the edge of this shape to fill it in completely. Now, I'm showing you this for the beginning of the demonstration, but as we go through the rest of the colors, I'm not gonna do this for every color. You will, but for the sake of time in the demonstration, I'm not gonna sit here and every single time like go super slow and fill it in completely, just because that would be a waste of your time. But I do want to show you just for the primary colors, filling those in neatly. So see, that's solid. There's no dry spots where I can see white through the paper, and there's no outside of the lines. So now I'm going to switch to my next primary color. That means I need to rinse out my brush with the water really well so there's no blue left in it. Use the paper towel to dry it. I'm going to move on to the next one. Does not matter which one is next. I'm going to go ahead and do red. And remember, it's going to go in the other large triangle. Those are your 3 primary colors. So again, the key to craftsmanship is taking your time here. This is not really hard. It's not something that you can't accomplish. It's just something that if you're rushing and going too fast, you're going to mess it up. So the middle, we can fill in a little bit quicker, but then as we get to those edges, we slow down. And this is where you can probably imagine if you were using a brush that was way too big, you would have a really hard time controlling where the bristles are touching the paper and where you're painting. Again, I'm just filling mine in fully for the primary colors. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me fill in every single one of these fully because it would take a long time. All right, now rinsing my brush so that I can do yellow last. Not any reason for doing yellow last, does not matter. Rinse my brush and then dry it. Another thing that will take away from your craftsmanship is if you have too much water on your brush and then you put it with paint, it's going to make the paint very, very, very thin on your paper, and you won't be able to fill it in very solid. We really want it to be solid. We want it to be streaky. We don't want it to be too thin and transparent. So those are decent, I wouldn't even say perfect, but decent examples of staying inside that shape and filling them in completely with good craftsmanship. All right, washing out my brush again, and now it's time to start color mixing because we create, and here's an example of a color wheel which you guys have on your table. We create the secondary and tertiary colors by mixing together the primary colors. So what's an example of a secondary color? Orange. What are the other two? Purple and green. So we see that here's the primaries. So if green is here, what 2 primaries do you mix together to make it? Yellow and blue, right. So this is basically a key. If you're looking at where the placement of the secondary color is, the primaries that are on either side, that's what tells you how to make those colors. So in order to make green, we're going to mix together yellow and blue. In order to make orange, we're going to mix together yellow and red, and to make violet or purple, which are the same thing, we're going to mix together which? Blue and red, correct. So I'm going to start by mixing my green. You'll see on the palette the colors, I'm going to space them out for you. When you mix, you always want to start with the lighter color first when you're mixing. So if we're making green, which color would I start with? Yellow, correct. So I'm going to scoop away some of this yellow and put it in a separate pile because we're going to need more yellow later to make orange, so we don't want to mix the blue directly into this pile because then we won't have enough. So I'm going to scoop it over, and then I'm going to get just the small amount of blue because blue is a bolder color, it's stronger, and it's going to change it a lot faster than you think. So I'm going to get just a little bit to start with. I'm going to start mixing it in the separate pile. Now this is a good time to use your color wheel that's on your table, and you can kind of compare the color to what you've made. So do you guys think this is more of a green or a yellow green? It's more yellow green. So at this point, while you're painting, you could go ahead and take what you've mixed already and paint it in the spot for yellow green, which would be here, because green will go here between yellow and blue, and yellow green will be closer to yellow. I'm going to continue mixing just to show you how to, continue adding. So I'm going to get just a little bit more blue on my brush. And we're getting closer. You see how much just that small amount of blue changed the green? So are we getting closer? What do you think? More blue, or you think we're good? gonna put more blue. I think you're right. What's gonna happen if we put too much blue? Blue-green, that's right. Another helpful technique is to use a piece of white paper and paint it on the paper to see what the paint actually looks like on the paper, because it looks a little bit different on a paper than it does in a pile. So what do you guys think? Green, or you think we need more blue still? I think it's pretty good. So what I would do now is in the spot between yellow and blue on my paper, I would paint green and fill in this shape completely. Remember, I'm not gonna fill it in because I'm trying to save us some time on the demonstration, but you would fill it in just like we filled these in. So now it's my job to make blue-green and yellow-green. So in order to make blue-green, I'm gonna get a good bit of blue on my brush and I'm gonna mix in just with a part of it here. Do we think that is different enough from green? Yes, so then we would put it here between blue and green, would be our tertiary color, blue-green. Now we're gonna make yellow-green by adding more yellow just to a small section of the green and paint it in this section. So see, we have 3 significantly different greens. The key is to see, do they look different from the next? If not, which one needs to be changed so that they do? Now we're finished mixing our greens. We're gonna move on to orange. So I'm gonna wash out my brush now because I don't want any of this green to mix with the orange. It will make a poop color. Wash out my brush really well. Use my paper towel to dry it off. And then if we're mixing orange, which color should we start with first? Right, yellow is lighter. We always start with the lighter color first. So I'm gonna scoop most of my yellow, but not all, but most of it, just in case we need to adjust. I wanna save some. And then I'm gonna get just a little bit of red. Red is bold, just like blue. So when we mix it in, we only wanna get just a little bit on our brush. Remember, we can reference our color wheel here. Does this look like an orange or do you think yellow orange? I think that's a kind of a mac and cheesy color. That's what I think of when I think of yellow orange. So if you wanted to, at this point, you could go ahead and paint the yellow orange in this square. So I'm gonna do that. Again, you'd be filling these in fully, not just little brush strokes. Now I'm gonna add just a little more red to try to get my regular orange. I'm gonna paint this one on the paper and see what it looks like. What do you guys think? Is that regular orange? Yeah, I think so too. So we would paint that in this larger one because that's for our secondary colors. We can see there's a distinct difference between yellow orange and orange here. Now I need to do red orange, so I'm gonna add even more red. I'm scooping in more as necessary of the orange. Do we think that this looks different enough than red? I agree. So that would go in our red-orange area here. Now we move on to purple. Purple is the trickiest one to mix. Why do you think that is? They're both the bolder, strong colors. Red and blue are both bold and strong. So we need to use, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. It's a little tricky because I think if we had to guess, we would probably say that we think blue is the bolder color. However, red is actually a little bit stronger in this paint, and I don't know why that is, but it is. So we're gonna start with the red and save a good bit, scoop to the side, because you may have to go back and forth a lot and you're gonna need extra red. So don't scoop everything, just save some over here. Then I'm gonna start by just getting a little blue. And see how quickly that changed? I mean, they are just like really both super strong colors. Now, see how when I spread it thin on the palette, we can kind of see the true color a little bit more than when it's clumped together. So what if you guys had to categorize the color that we see right now? What do you think? Violet, red violet, or blue violet? I agree. I think this is more of a red violet. It's kind of like a raspberry color. It's sort of a magenta, hot pinky looking color. So I could paint that here where red violet will go. Remember, we'll be filling it in completely, not little brush strokes. Now I'm gonna continue adding a little more blue to see if I can get the perfect grape violet color. And this will be one where it will be helpful if you wanna test it on a piece of white paper. Don't test it on the paper we're painting on, but test it, get a scrap piece of paper from the scrap paper drawer and test it to see what that looks like. What do you guys think? Is violet enough? Okay, so we're going to, right here, paint our violet in that larger secondary shape. And then we were going to continue adding blue to make blue violet, which I think of kind of like crushed up blueberries. Have you guys ever seen the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie? So, you know, Violet Beauregard like turns into a violet, like a blueberry. Yes, Violet, you're turning violet, Violet. Well, she's actually turning into a blueberry, which is more blue violet than violet. And so I kind of think of that when I make this color. All right, so we're gonna paint it on the paper. What do you guys think? Is that different enough from the purple? Yeah. I'm gonna add just a hair more. It's kind of an indigo color also. You could think of it that way. All right. Now here we're painting in the blue violet. Now as you look at this color wheel, you should be able to tell, especially now that they're drying a little bit, a distinct change from one color to the next. None of these should look like the same color. If they look like the same color, it is wrong. Something is wrong. One of them is wrong. One of them's probably right, but one of them probably needs to be adjusted. So just to recap, what we're going to be looking for when this is graded is that you have mixed all of your colors accurately, and that you've put them in order on the color wheel, and that you've filled in the shapes neatly to show those colors. After you're finished, you're gonna clean up, but before that, you need to label every color on here. What did I do with that pencil? I don't know, I'll use a pen. You need to label these colors. That's why they have these little lines next to the color wheel. So we would label blue, blue violet, violet, red violet, red, red orange, orange, all the way around to blue-green. So make sure all those are labeled before you turn it in, and make sure that you've painted them neatly, you mix your colors. Lastly, you need to take your brush and the palette that you're going to be given over to the sink and wash them off. Throw your paper towel away, rinse out your water cup, and if this is not dry before we leave, you can put it on this drying rack over here next to Jesus and the trash can. Not related to each other though. Any questions? You guys are going to do fantastic. I'm excited. Please do not be frustrated if it takes you longer to make these colors than it took me. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've done this demonstration probably more than 20 times. So it comes a little bit faster to me, but it may take you a little longer to get the perfect color. Be patient and really mix the perfect color. All right, I am going to